Hello again. You are listening to Is This Strange? Stories of the Unusual by KL and Roxy. So, following up on Roxy's experience with
ghostly figures.
Yeah, ghostly figures and ghostly
Noises.
music.
Ghostly music, yes.
We're going to talk about the one that has happened to us here. And this started midwinterish last year. Yeah. So we had to spend the winter here. Wasn't bad because at least we were in our house finally instead of the bus.
Yeah, that last winter was pretty bad.
Yeah,
it was cold.
The winter we spent in the bus was definitely enough to say we will never do it again.
There's a reason why the wheels on the bus go round and around.
Yeah, it's to take us to warmer climate.
Yep. Okay.
So about winterish, it was a nice sunny day because that's the one thing about winter here. It is still sunny. So it was a sunny day and we're out. And that's why I knew it was winter. The tractor was warming up to run because we needed to clear out our space from snow. Okay. So over the diesel, this is a diesel tractor. It is not quiet by any means. You know, you hear it, it rumbles to life, and it, you know. Yeah, it sounds like a diesel.
Yeah.
All right. So we're standing there and we're chatting, and all of a sudden, we hear something extremely musical. And we can't quite figure out where it's coming from. And
our nearest neighbor is a quarter mile away.
Yes.
And we have none on one side.
Exactly.
And the other ones were gone. They were in their house in town.
Yeah.
So they weren't there.
So when we say our nearest neighbor, that's actually someone across the river from us.
Just almost a half mile.
Yeah, actually it is. Okay, so we're listening to this flute music. It was a flute. I don't know how else to describe it except to say it was a flute. Roxy says it sounded like a Native American flute. I will not disagree. But it was a flute. It was very breathy. It was high-pitched.
Slow.
Yeah, that was the thing, too. It was super slow. And it wasn't windy, so you can't say it was like the wind whipping through something. Plus, we've been here for all of the wind seasons. All of them.
And the train down the way wasn't running, so it wasn't the... That usually goes toot, you know, unless the... unless the guy's getting creative, but it's still a different sound.
And he does get creative sometimes. It's really fun to listen. I don't know if they have a different engineer once in a while, but he'll like try to play music on it. But you can still tell the difference
between a train and a native flute.
Yeah. And we've mentioned before, this was, I'm assuming we've mentioned before, there was a lot of Native American activity here. This was a very peaceful valley. The history that I've been able to find out said we actually had quite a few tribes. And because they considered this area sacred, a bunch of different tribes could come into it. And there was never any disputes.
Right.
I've even found a nice, really pretty white arrowhead on our property.
So what you have to remember, too, is this place has a lot of elk. It has a lot of grasslands. It has a lot of rivers. So the desert-type natives down south, if any of you are familiar with the Southwest, and it gets rather hot here in the summer. So
except for where we're at.
But we're high altitude, and anybody coming from south can come up into this valley and hunt and gather berries, and they have asparagus and wild rhubarb. They have all sorts of vegetation here, and rivers and fish, whereas all the rivers dry up. And
before Europeans settled in here, it was actually a lot grassy, or more trees.
More trees, a lot grassy. So the natives would come here, and they would camp in the valley, and it would be different tribes, and there was a rule that there was no warfare when they would come up here to do that stuff.
Like I said, it's a very peaceful valley. And you can feel it. It's still a very peaceful valley. And the volcano across from us was, I think it was kind of like a sacred place. So...
And even the natives here talked about the Sasquatches.
Yeah, I know. But they had a different name, and I'll go into that later on a different episode.
That's cool.
Okay, so we're out, and we're hearing a flute noise. So we start trying to walk towards it because we're like, is somebody on our property playing the flute? because one, they're trespassing, and two, that's just odd.
That's really odd.
Trespass on someone's land and play the flute. And, third would be, how did they get there?
Right.
Like I said, there's a river across the way, a river that runs through the property, but you would have to walk across really, really, really cold water.
Really cold water.
So we're like, okay. So we start trying to walk towards it. And as I start trying to get towards it, it moves. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that when we first heard it, it actually didn't sound like it was down behind at the back of the property. No, it really sounded like it was only maybe 100 yards away.
It was really close. So we kept walking around trying to triangulate, because if you move to different locations,
the noise moved.
The noise, if it's in one location, you should be able to triangulate it and tell which direction the noise is coming from. So...
Especially with my hearing, because Roxy always says I can hear a cricket fart.
Yeah, she can hear a cricket fart.
So with my hearing, I definitely should have been able to figure out where it was coming from.
But it kept moving.
Yeah.
And there's no way that a person humanly could
get past me
from one direction to the other. It was like it was teasing us.
Yeah.
With this location, and it wouldn't, but it was super loud. I mean, at one point it sounded like it was like literally right on the other side of our vehicle.
Yeah, because we could hear it over the diesel engine. Okay, so that was the first time. But that was not the last time.
No, it wasn't.
We heard it later when we were actually down by the river. I was down there taking, some morning pictures and some morning video of the river, and we heard it again. This time it sounded like it was coming from the east, except when I started trying to walk towards it, it again kept moving away from me. So I don't know what to say about the phantom flute noise. It is not offensive.
No.
There has never been anything threatening on this property. I mean, except for the mountain lion one time.
Yeah.
But
that was wild.
But that was real. That wasn't a ghost lion. That was literally a real mountain lion.
Yeah. So it wasn't a person. It wasn't music from a vehicle.
No.
We disproved that it was the railroad train whistle.
Because they weren't running.
We do have birds. We have magpies and other birds that mimic sounds, but most of them just sound kind of like your phone. They make mechanical noises.
Except
That's the craziest one.
At the time of year, we didn't have any magpies.
Right.
Magpies don't actually come back to this area. And we don't see magpies on our land until about July.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that even if it could have been a bird, they usually do a set number of notes, and then they repeat themselves.
Because they're calling to their mates or something.
Right. And they're not usually an extended. We're talking about, this was a song that played.
This was very musical.
And kept going and going and going. And it wasn't like, bird chirp, bird chirp, bird chirp. No, this was an actual musical instrument being played.
Yeah, it was really awesome.
And
like I said, this isn't the first time, it was the first time we heard it, but it hasn't been the last. I would say maybe we've heard it 3 other times now. Surprisingly, winter was the first time we heard it. We heard it spring of this year. Then I heard it actually a couple weeks ago down by the river. We heard it. And I pretty much know all of the sounds that are around here.
Right.
All of the sounds that you're going to hear. I can tell you the birds when it's them, things like that. So,
and let's be honest, a wooden carved native flute has a specific sound to it. I mean, the different ones have different types of register to them.
Yeah.
But
different tones.
But they all have a certain sound to reedy. That's the sound.
There you go.
They have a certain reedy sound to them that is pretty obvious.
So you tell us, is this strange? And we will be back with another episode later. Bye, y'all.